Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Josh and Jason Monday Christian and Conspiracy Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Monday. If you don't know me, I'm a Christian rapper, devoted husband, father, and Army veteran. And my co-host, Jason, is actually going to be off tonight, so he can go ahead and enjoy his family tonight. And we're going to go ahead and crush it. So we have a very special guest for you guys today. It's Dr. J.B. Hixson. He's a nationally known author, speaker, radio host with more than 30 years of ministry experience in his pastoral and academic arenas. If you guys could, please welcome him. And if you could, you can go over the books that you have available so people know. And I don't want to, mess up on the titles or, tell the wrong book. So if you could, tell them the books that you have.
You bet. Hey, thanks, Josh. My pleasure for being here. You guys are doing great work. My last three books is when I finally decided to put into writing what I had kind of been researching in earnest the last 18 years. So I went down the rabbit hole about 18 years ago, give or take, and just started realizing that most of what I thought I had learned in terms of the mainstream narrative and history, particularly U.S. history, was a lie. And so I started out in 2022 with Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 1, The Gathering Cloud of Deception. And then it was originally going to be one volume, and it was kind of the culmination of an 18-part video series that we had put out the year before. But it became clear pretty quick that I wasn't going to be able to fit it all in one book, so we made it a two-volume set. So Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 1 and 2 came out in 2022. And then last year, we kind of released the third book in the triad called Spirit of the False Prophet, Rise of the Global Technocracy. Folks can learn more about those books at spiritoftheantichrist.org, spiritoftheantichrist.org. And we list the table of contents. We list the entire preface of each of the first two books there. Since you're kind of interested in conspiracies, I think your audience will appreciate looking through the table of contents, and I promise you they will find multiple topics there that resonate. And so I love waking people up to the reality of how the world really exists.
And we do too. We love that, and we love to have guests like yourself that is not afraid to. And you're a pastor as well, so you're not afraid to speak about conspiracies. I noticed that some pastors, I think, I don't know if it's, I know the congregations have probably like a board of representatives, and they probably want to, hey, I'd like you to stick with these type of things. Please don't go outside the box. And I know there's one pastor in particular that he was part of a big church, and he was teaching his messages. And what he did is he went to a flat earth conference, right? And he started finding out about biblical cosmology. And what he did is he went to that conference, and they actually fired him because they were like, why would you go to something like that? And what he wanted to do is he wanted to present a message on that particular subject, which is like, in the conspiracy fringe realm. And he got fired for that. And I'm like, wow. So it's just interesting. I think that it happens a lot, where I think maybe they want to stay away from the giants, the Genesis 6. They want to stay away from some things like the firmament. They want to stay away from a lot of things. So I'm sure you know about this stuff, but it's nice to have somebody that will stand on the word and still, talk about these type of topics that people need to know.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because just this past Tuesday, we're recording this on a Friday. I'm not sure when you're going to post it, but the previous Tuesday, just 3 days ago, I did a prophecy night in Denver, and I spoke all about the Nephilim and Genesis 6, and we post on a variety of platforms, but we just recently started once again posting on YouTube because I had been banned from there about 3 years ago during the pandemic. We've been back on YouTube again for about 3 weeks, and sure enough, Wednesday morning it was on less than 12 hours, and they dropped my video on the Nephilim and a variety of other topics from Tuesday night. So, yeah, we've never been afraid to to speak the truth, and I think part of it is I was really angry at myself when I realized how much I had been lied to, and I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do. So like I say, that was roughly 17, 18 years ago. I'm 56, so that would have put me, 38 or whatever, 18 years ago. I'm not mad. I was public schooled, so you'll have to forgive my math.
Hey, no worries.
But But anyway, so I just felt like, man, I want to dedicate the rest of my life to exposing some of these lies. Now, I've been in ministry 35 years. We believe in the clarity, accuracy, and urgency of the gospel. We want to share biblical truth with people.
Amen.
But this has really become our driving passion over the last, 18 years or so. You mentioned our church. I'm really blessed because I have a non-traditional arrangement with my church, Plum Creek Chapel in the Denver, Colorado area. Our primary ministry is with Not by Works Ministries and has been since 1999. But the Lord called us to be the teaching pastor there about 4 years ago. And I get the best of both worlds because I have a great congregation, great leadership team, and I get to use my highest and best skills, which are teaching. I don't have to get distracted with a lot of the other politics and, the types of stuff that a lot of pastors, have to deal with. And so since the whole inception of our relationship was one of teaching, the church certainly knew about my teachings and my background and my writings, and they embraced it. So it's been a win-win. It's the church is thriving, Not by Works is thriving, and as long as we can until the Lord comes back, we want to keep getting the message out.
Amen to that. I see you have one called the Great Deception. Hold on, let me see what that says. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the great
The Great Last Days Deception.
yeah.
What I mean, what do you think that is going to be? That's a very important topic. I think a lot of people come up with. A lot of people have different theories on this. I know that you can't just answer it in one one sentence. I know that there's probably a lot to the book, but what was that about? I can see it says
Yeah.
exposing Satan's New World Order agenda. That type of stuff is interesting. What was it about?
Yeah, so that came out in 2012. And I've written 12 books. Most of them until recently were on general theology. I did have an end times textbook that's basically biblical eschatology, but none of the conspiracy stuff. But when I first woke up back in around 2007, 2008, I went down the rabbit hole, as I said. We did a ton of research. My wife and I kind of walked this journey together. And I was so eager to get something out there that book you just mentioned was kind of my first attempt to cover some of the conspiracies. So it's a smaller book, Great Last Days Deception, Exposing Satan's New World Order Agenda. The title comes from 2 Timothy 3:13, which tells us that in the last days, deception is going to get worse and worse. So the last days in Scripture, and that phrase is used multiple times in the New Testament, refers to the present church age. So the last days are these 2,000 years that we've been in since the time of Christ. If you look at a panoramic view of history, the only formal age to come, according to God's plan of the ages, is the kingdom age. And that won't come, of course, until Christ comes back to inaugurate the millennium. So really, the Bible is, it's appropriate that the Bible calls this the last days, because, in the grand scheme of things, this is the final age until Christ comes back. So that's what the last days refers to. And then the deception, of course, just refers to the fact that the closer we get to the Lord's return, the more easily people are going to be deceived. And, and this is kind of a perfect storm, that not only are people going to be more easily deceived, but Satan and his minions are going to ratchet up the power of deception so that it's harder and harder to recognize truth from fiction.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, and that's happening on a wide scale in several different areas. And I think they really ramped up in 2019, when they pushed everything forward, which you already know. I don't want to say because I'm on YouTube, but they really ramped it up, and it's been ramping up. It's almost like a slow release pill of deception from, even if you just watch TV, for example, you'll see like back in the 30s, there's the women are just wearing full long dresses, nothing like that. And then you got the 40s and then the 50s. And then once they had TV, the 60s, you see like, the hippie movement. You see like, maybe they wear like a bathing suit on TV. Now you got full-fledged people naked on TV, even on regular television, which is crazy, but it's almost like a slow release pill on all different areas, and things are created to keep us away from the Bible, keep us away from God. I think that's the main objective of Satan, I believe, is to keep people away from reading the word and to keep people away from knowing God, and getting saved. It's his main objective, right? So that's coming from all different angles: scientific, Big Bang theories, all that stuff. Everything is like a block wall to stop you from believing the Bible and Genesis. So it just gets interesting. But I do believe the deceptions are massive right now, and they're
Yeah.
coming from all different angles.
Oh yeah,
And
no, it's a sign of the times to be sure. But you're right. Satan, the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 4:4, Satan's blinding men's hearts to the gospel. And
yeah,
appreciate you saying that because that's really what it's all about. All of these other conspiracies, and there's so many of them out there. And I always like to remind people I don't believe in conspiracy theories except the ones that are true.
yeah.
And so not all of them are true, but many of them are. And so it's nothing wrong with us being truth seekers, trying to study the evidence, look at the facts, and if it's one that you don't that the evidence doesn't support it, fine, move on. But there's so many of them. All of them, though, are an attempt to lead us away from the gospel, and that's what we're passionate about here at NBW Ministries. NBW stands for Not by Works.
Mm.
Comes from Titus 3:5, not by works of righteousness, which we have done, but according to his mercy, he saved us. So one of the great things that has happened as more and more people are waking up, and like you said, 2020 was a big part of that,
Yeah.
is it's giving us an opportunity to talk about spiritual matters and things of the Lord with an audience that maybe before was not as open to talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think generationally, like for my dad, the Kennedy assassination was something that gripped him. And then we have like the 9/11, then there's just these things that happen that are waking people up. And for the, I guess they would say, what, I don't know what they call Generation Z or something. It would probably be 2019. So it's good that God gives, these things happen. I know that God, I'm not saying that God wanted 9/11 to happen, but these things are happening where it wakes people up, and it brings people closer to God. And I think, what do you think the benefits are as a Christian, knowing these type of conspiracies, and also being deep into the word, and knowing the word? Like, what do you think the benefits of that are?
Well, I think there's a great benefit. For me, it was awakening to the spiritual battle that is raging. So,
Amen.
the whole premise of these two books, the first two, and then the third one is all about the false prophet and his role in the coming global tyranny. Um, but the whole premise is that Satan is, ever since he got kicked out of heaven after that failed coup attempt, is conspiring with evil celestial beings, fallen angels and demons and the like, and human co-conspirators. Those three make up the grand conspiracy to try to take over this world and defeat God. And
Mhm.
so until I realized that, I kind of couched everything in terms of the right-left paradigm, Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive, religious issues. I just kind of lost sight of the fact that there is a cosmic battle raging in the unseen realm that really is directly connected to what we see happening on earth. Now, not everything that happens is, it's not like Satan pulls a string and the puppets dance. I mean, they're just bad people in this world that do bad things. So we don't want to be we don't want to overstate the case. But at the macro level, as I demonstrate in the books, there is a Luciferian elite who in dark, smoke-filled rooms in the far recesses of this globe are praying to Satan the same way you and I pray to Almighty God. They're getting their marching orders from him, and they have at their disposal a whole host of evil beings that are talked about in Ephesians 6, as well as human puppets that are working to kind of accomplish their goals. So let me just mention some of the topics that folks, I know your audience will love. You've probably talked about a lot of these subjects, but in the first volume, we sort of set the stage for the conspiracy, describe it, define it, even diagram it out, the three layers of people at each layer. But then we get into some examples like Operation Mockingbird and the
Mm.
false left-right paradigm, fake news, geoengineering.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier some of the subjects that people are afraid to talk about. I've had a few of those where I've early on talked about some of these things and was disinvited from conferences, or they edited out my part of my messages because of it. The Hegelian dialectic, vaccines and big pharma, false flags, eugenics, and then you get over to volume two, and that's where the lion's share of it starts to come into play. I get into things like um, transhumanism, Klaus Schwab, secret societies. I have a whole chapter on various secret societies, CFR, Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove, fake elections, global surveillance, and the police state. 2 chapters on UFOs, UAP, the US government, paranormal activity, including cryptids and things like Bigfoot, strange disappearances, skinwalkers, shapeshifters, the rise of Christian persecution, what I call the gender surrender movement,
Mm.
Hollywood, the whole satanic ritual abuse. So, and I weave this together, and it doesn't mean I'm right on everything. Obviously, I'm not. This isn't the Bible. I'm fallible, unlike God's word. But it's well researched. Each book has 40 pages or more. I think one of them has 60 pages of citations at the back, so people can do their own research. And but when I woke up, I was so shocked at how easily I had been duped. I started questioning everything, and I said, I want to go in and just double check everything, and I'm still doing that. I mean, it's a lifelong process until the Lord comes back. We should be students of not only the Word but history.
Yes, and it takes a lot of research, and we appreciate you doing all that research. I do a lot of research for the podcast. I do a lot of research as far as biblically, and it takes a lot of work just to even have a podcast. I could imagine writing a book. I've been approached to write a book on biblical cosmology before, but I've done music. So I just kind of know the gig. And it's like it's hard when I feel like some companies want to. Maybe take advantage of a first author, but I'll talk to you on it off the air. Maybe you can give me some advice on that. But yeah, I've been
Yeah,
approached on it before, but I just, you know, I'm
yeah.
trying to do too much already. If
Well,
that makes
I
sense.
admire you and some of your colleagues that I've I think that connected us and that I've had the privilege of doing their shows before, because you're not afraid to dive into subjects that are in some arenas the third rail. I
Yeah,
can remember
yeah,
when 9/11 was the third rail.
yeah.
And for the first 10 years or so of my speaking, we do a ton of speaking all across the country. I would avoid explicitly talking about that, only because there were so many people that were still blinded to it. Now, of course, the vast majority of Americans recognize that 9/11 was an inside job. The facts just don't add up. In fact, I think 6 of the 10 9/11 Commission members actually now say it was an inside job. So that one's kind of run its course. But there are a lot of others that, you and I may agree on some of them. We may not agree on others, but I appreciate the courage that you're doing to stand up and look into it. I think it's important for people to research everything, and nothing would surprise me at all.
I know. Once you're awake, nothing does surprise you at all. So, okay, you mentioned that they go into dark alleys, or they go not dark alleys, like dark, conference rooms. So, like, so Hebrews 13:2, it says, "Be not forgotten to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware." So, I believe that's talking about fallen angels and regular angels. But do you believe that maybe Satan, like, because it seems most of the time that I see angels coming to earth, they're in human form, like Lot, when the angels came to Sodom and Gomorrah, they're able to eat, they're able to grab, right, Lot's wife, physically. It seems like angels come in human form, so do you believe that Satan is able to maybe sit at a conference room and speak to them in human form, or do you think it's more of a spiritual aspect to it?
Both and I think it's both. Absolutely, Satan is an angel. He was a cherub. I mean, there's some question as to the classifications of celestial beings, both good and bad. In my books, I kind of keep it pretty simple. You've got good angels and fallen angels, but there are hierarchies in both realms. You've got archangels and those types of things,
Yeah.
cherub, seraphim. But absolutely, Satan is an angel, and angels by definition can take on human form. We've seen it both in the fallen angel side with the Genesis 6 intrusion, as well
Yeah.
as well, that's the main one. Of course, it's attested in the New Testament and the Old Testament alike. But certainly, as you mentioned, Hebrews 13:2, good angels the angels are ministering spirits, and that person that stopped and helped you change a flat tire, you may never know. Maybe that was an angel, right? But you bring up a good point, and that is that in their physicality, when an angel, good or bad, takes on human form, if you were to touch them, you would feel them. If you were to
Yeah.
cut off their arm, they would bleed. We know that they have all the other elements of physicality because they could have sex with these women and produce children.
Yeah.
So I know that's very hard for some people to get their hands around, but that's just what the Bible says. We accept it because it's quite, quite plain. There's no wiggle room there in Scripture. These are angels who left their proper domain, committed sexual sin, as Jude tells us, and Genesis 6 describes, and the result was a race of hybrid beings. These Nephilim are not human beings. They're not redeemable. They don't have a soul. They are evil beings, but they're not pure angelic beings. They are hybrids. Yeah, these Satan could be. The reason I said both and is because he absolutely could manifest as a human being and talk to people. In my book, the volume 2, I've got a fascinating dialogue about that with a guy that I interviewed who was controlled satanic agent for most of his life, from a young boy up to his 50s. And it's in chapter 10. It's called Something Really Strange Happened. But he was, either met Satan or certainly met some higher ups in the evil army. But Satan can also give his marching orders just through, demonic voices, audible voices. He doesn't have to appear as a human to kind of direct the minions that are underneath him.
Yeah, and I read in Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. So it sounds like Satan has a seed, and I know some people say that's the seed like of Cain and all that, but I believe, he has a literal seed, and that's why angels, fallen angels, they have a seed and they are able to produce like they did in Genesis 6. So I think that's interesting, that God put that in there. So we know, and some people even take it to the point where they believe the Antichrist maybe will be the literal seed of Satan, which is Ryan Peterson. I've never heard of his book, but
Oh yeah, I
I
know
think it
Ryan.
gets.
I know Ryan well. We've worked together a lot at different conferences. He's agreed to come on the show. We just haven't found a date yet. Have you been able to have him on your show?
Yeah, he's been on my show a lot. I've had roundtables like with him on it, and he's great. He's really great at interviewing. But yeah, I've had him on, and yeah, he does a great job. God is great, man. And it's at some point maybe we'll have you on a roundtable. I think that'd be great.
I'd love it. Yeah, I mean, you do have to wrestle with that Genesis 3:15 passage. It's one of those that I had kind of read past a number of times, and I've taught, I taught for 12 years in academia full time at the college and graduate levels. And so I've taught demonology, angelology. I've taught the, biblical anthropology and what is the depravity of man. And so I've dealt with Genesis 3:15 a lot. But, clearly we know that the seed of the woman, and it's capitalized in the New King James to indicate it's a reference to the future virgin birth and the Messiah, Christ himself.
Mhm.
But what is the seed of the serpent? I mean,
Yeah.
what is that? So Ryan, of course, takes that ultimately the Antichrist is going to be a Nephilim. That's why he calls one of his books, The Final Nephilim, I think it's called.
Yeah, the final definitely. Yep.
I mean, I'm very open to that. I think we have to really look at the totality of the biblical evidence, and there's nothing at face value anyway that precludes that from being the case, and it definitely seems to match what Genesis 3:15 is saying.
Yeah, which is amazing. But yeah, so interesting stuff on the secret society stuff. I've also done a ton of research on like college and high school secret societies, and like how it's almost like a draft pick for the Illuminati, or for the secret for the higher up secret societies. They get tapped. They're usually part of like some bloodline, or and you see like all these secret societies in college. You can literally Google it, and every single major college has a secret society that's comparable to at least one comparable to the Skull and Bones. So those people have all, I would say, almost to the point where you're pledging an oath to Satan, basically, right? So it's really interesting on that, and you're going to see like board of representatives, House of Representatives, Supreme Court. You're going to see CEOs of Ford, all these different people from high school going to these 8 preparatory schools, and then they're in like a secret society, like in high school, all the way to college, and then you see them end up in the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, all the way to the top. Presidents. Even like the Skull and Bones, for example. Woodrow Wilson, his dad started the Skull and Bones, and then he became president. He went to Yale, went to Skull and Bones, and became president. So it happened fast that one of their members made it to the top. So I think it. Go ahead.
I was going to just say, if any of your listeners have not watched the film The Good Shepherd, that's an excellent kind of art imitates life reality of the founding of the CIA and how Skull and Bones played a key role in that. But one of the things that's interesting about the secret societies is, it's not just the ones from the universities like Skull and Bones, which is kind of the big one, but you've got Freemasonry, and then later the Illuminati that were founded in America in 1776. You've got Knights Templar, you've got the Round Table Group, you've got Opus Dei, Rosicrucianism, and several others. And they're not all like directly connected. They're all just different outposts that Satan uses to gain influential people and to train them up. But absolutely, Freemasonry and Skull and Bones are right there at the tip of the spear. Back in 2004, we had both candidates for president, W. Bush and Kerry, were Skull and Bones. Yep. And I in the book, I give a transcript of an interview that each of them did during the campaign with the Meet the Press guy. I forget his name. He died. Anyway, he was famous he was the leader of Meet the Press. His name will come to me in a second. But anyway, in both interviews independently, he asked them each about Skull and Bones. And they both just kind of laughed it off. But you could tell by the look in their eyes, they couldn't say. We can't tell you because it's secret.
He said, "Yeah, we can't tell you because it's so secret. We can't tell you." And they smiled, at the camera. So, if you notice, you can literally take these people and trace them back to some type of secret society. Like even Bill Clinton, when he was going against George W. Bush, they both went to Yale. So did Hillary Clinton. They both went to Yale, and he was in like the younger version of Freemasonry. And then George Bush, George Bush Senior was in a secret society in high school. He was in a secret society in his first college, which was Baylor. Then he was in a secret society at Yale as well, Skull and Bones. And then he joined the Trilateral Commission. And then he was the head of CIA. Then if you look at the resume that these gentlemen end up having when they go to these secret societies, it's just like, you're going to look at it, you're like, wow. I mean, having that kind of resume, like they start out as like, whatever, some type of government position, and they just work their way up. They end up the top of the CIA and then president of the United States, so
because they have powerful friends in powerful places who can cover up all of their youthful indiscretions. Look at W. They sanitized his record, but it's widely known if you take the time, which a lot of conservatives don't. A lot of conservatives just drink the Kool-Aid, buy the narrative. They don't take the time to do the research because they're afraid of reading liberals or progressives. But you need to read them because facts are facts. It doesn't matter if the guy that writing the book is a progressive or not. You may not agree with everything they say or their whole worldview, but when they've got incontrovertible evidence and documented, pictures of letters and, those types of things, it tells a story. And a lot of Christians just basically, if they don't hear it on Fox News or Newsmax or something, they're not going to believe it. But W had quite a past for those who took the time to look into it.
And look into Dick Cheney as well. If you want to, like, George W. Bush wasn't even really the I don't even think he was the power. I think his father was like, hey, we need to get Dick Cheney in there. So Dick Cheney looked like he was actually, ruling, but George W. Bush was just along for the ride almost, So you see that even when 9/11 happened, George W. Bush was sitting there reading a book and upside down. It was kind of weird, but anyways, he was sitting there reading a book at elementary school. Dick Cheney, they took him immediately into the bunkers, and they're asking him, what's the next move, as if he's the one that's president. So I think that's really
they not only when America was under attack, not only did they let him stick around there for 15 more minutes and give a press conference, totally violating every conceivable rule of the Secret Service, but Yeah. Now, if you've followed any of my stuff, my view is that all of the elections have been selections for a long
Of
time.
course. Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Carter, for example, was handpicked at Bohemian Grove. Um, these guys are, it's gotten much easier to rig elections the last 20 years than it what you did with the digital technology than it used to be, but they were still rigged for a long time. So, W was put in for a reason. Trump was put in for a reason. Right after W was in, you had 9/11. Right after Trump was in, you had the pandemic. I mean, these are not accidents.
Yeah, and Jimmy Carter also was part of the Gridiron Club, which is in his college was Georgia University. And actually, if you look up the Gridiron Club, it's interesting because every single senator and governor from Georgia have both been in the Gridiron Club all the way up to today. So each of them, Brian Kemp and the other guy, they've all been in it ever since 1930. The
Yeah.
same exact secret society in college. So
Yeah.
it's just
The
it's
notion that, a person could grow up in this country and, have a good, solid biblical worldview and be patriotic and want to make a difference in this country. And if they just work hard and are honest, they can eventually become president. That's just so naive. It's all who you know. And there is a powerful elite. Call it the deep state, call it the global elite, call it shadow government, whatever you want to call it. They call themselves Luciferians at the top level, and in the
yeah.
book, Luciferian elite, whatever you call it. There's a powerful cabal that really, nobody just gets into Congress, or by the way, Senate, Supreme Court, and most of the congressmen, in my view.
I think it's like, and if you think about it, even if there was a 10%, maybe 10% they do allow maybe to get in there, let's say, not as president, but as like a House of Representative, something like that. As long as they have 90% that are dedicated to Satan or to their agendas, then hey, they'll let these people vote, no problem, because they'll never win.
Right.
Whatever way they want to go, they make sure it happens. And this is what we and I'm telling you guys that are listening, even your listeners as well. If you go and you could start at high school, just put high school secret societies, you could find these people, CEOs. You can even see the gentleman that owns Facebook. He was supposed to be some gentleman that was just a random guy at Harvard that ended up coming up with this, but he went to these college preparatory schools that I'm talking about with these secret societies, and he was also breeded to do what he's doing. Obviously, like CIA, I mean, it's like basically CIA, Facebook. But anyways, so it's just you'll see that you'll see governors, you'll see people that inventors, you'll see people that have the Nobel Prize. All these people have been involved in these secret societies in college, and I'm not saying that those are the main ones, but I'm just saying to you, it's like it just goes to show you that if you went to San Bernardino College over here in California or VVC, Victor Valley College, you're probably not going to be the president of the United States, like you were talking about. You have to be selected, and you have to have all this backing. They won't even allow you on the ballot unless you're chosen or selected. And
Yeah.
and
I
all
mean, these all of these people, they have their public persona and the narrative that they've created, such as, Bill Gates was just some dorky, brilliant computer guy that worked in his garage. Next thing you know, he's a multi-billionaire. No, he wasn't. Look at his father. I mean, look
yeah.
at their lineage. Look at, like you said, the bloodlines. Same thing with Zuckerberg. Same thing with Musk. All these guys. Now, it doesn't mean that history does not also include, your guys that just worked hard and made a lot of money and tried to, as best they could, stay untainted from all of the evils of the cabal. That happens, and as long as they're not having too much influence, they'll let them go. It's called the Hegelian dialectic, controlled opposition. They got to
Yeah.
make the conservative good guys think they have a voice. But boy, if you get to be too influential or get too much of a following, man, they'll cut you down in a hurry.
They did it to John F. Kennedy right in front of everybody. It just took him out and just showed
Yeah,
you they show you if you make it to this position and you try to actually be a president, a patriotic president. I know that he was Democratic and I'm not a Democrat in any way, but he did a couple things there that was like, I want to take the CIA out. I want to make the money go back to the gold standard. There's a couple different things he did where they were like, we can't have that.
yeah.
So
Let me talk about JFK for just a second, if I may,
yes,
because
please.
I'm going to have Donald Jeffries on in a week, and he's a top, JFK researcher. He worked with Mark Lane in some of the early, right around the time of the Warren Commission, truth seekers. But and he's just a brilliant guy for many reasons. But as you said, JFK was not necessarily a moral guy. He had his issues. We may have disagreed on a lot of issues, but he was a wild card to them. He got in on a rigged election too. The mob and his father and all that, they made sure he got in, and the powers that be weren't too pleased with it. So especially once he started showing some independence, and as you said, talking about getting rid of the CIA, they weren't about to have that. So there's no question that the CIA and LBJ, in my mind, and in a lot of people's minds, by the way, that's not just speculation. There's some well-written, well-documented, smoking gun evidence that these people were involved in it. But Reagan is another one who, I'm not particularly a fan of Reagan, knowing what I now know about him. Still a hero in a lot of conservatives' minds, but they just haven't taken the time to research what he was all about.
Exactly.
By the way, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure Reagan was governor of California during when JFK was shot. Not that it had anything to do with it, but it's just kind of interesting. Time to kind of put a stake in the ground time-wise. But Reagan also kind of got a big populist movement, won in a landslide, got into office, and being somewhat of an outsider. I mean, he was an actor before he became governor. He was not from inside the Beltway, in other words, from a long line of politics. He had some independence, and so 3 months into his first term, they shot him. And I don't know if you've ever looked into that, but
Not yet.
Oh, you need to look into it, man. This will blow you away. So it turns out the Bush family has a long-standing business relationship with the Hinckley family.
Okay.
John Hinckley's the one who shot Reagan. Well, the day after he was happened to be shot on my birthday, March 30th. So it's easy to remember. And the day after he was shot, George H.W., who was vice president at the time, one of his sons was scheduled to meet with John Hinckley's brother in Denver for dinner. And this was mainstream news. The Houston Post covered it. Houston Post isn't around anymore, but there used to be two papers in Houston, the Chronicle and the Post. And it was mainstream front page news. And the writer concluded, well, in a strange coincidence, one of the Hinkleys and Bushes know each other, and one of H.W. Bush's sons was calendared to have dinner in Denver with one of Hinckley's brothers. Of course, in light of the shooting, they've canceled the dinner. That's kind of the way that read.
Of course.
What are the odds of that a president gets shot and the vice president's son and the shooter's son are planning to have dinner the next day? I mean, come on.
I know, that's just obvious. And then the Bin Laden's parents were having dinner with George Bush Sr. when 9/11 happened as well.
Yep.
So we have that. I mean, that's just there's too many coincidences there, But going back to JFK, so Lyndon B. Johnson's wife also owned the FCC. Lyndon B. Johnson was the vice president of John F. Kennedy. So she owned the FCC at the time, which obviously controls everything that goes out on the media. He was also he had money in Bell helicopters, so he made millions off the war. He's another guy, man. You can maybe kind of say he probably knew. We had J. Edgar Hoover was a 33-degree Mason. There was 6 out of the 7 that did the Warren report were Freemasons. And then Warren, he's also a 33-degree Mason. We got all these Freemasons all up in there. And there's so much stuff with that. It's insane, dude. But yeah, I mean, we could go back to anything else you want to talk about. If we go JFK, we're going to talk about it for hours.
LBJ was more than just, knew about it. I mean, I think he was in the deal.
Yeah, me too. I think so too.
He's dirty. Anybody from Texas, I went to high school and college in Texas, have a lot of family down there. Everybody knows he was dirty to the core. But yeah, I mean, I think this whole idea of bloodlines is critical to understand, especially in the history of this country. I make the case in my books that when the first pilgrims came over in 1620, they were God-fearing, Bible-believing, patriot, or not necessarily patriots, but people that were just wanting to have a place to worship God. And this was, a new land, and it was, they came over. Well, by the time 150 years goes by and we have the founding fathers come over, they were all free, not all of them, but many of the key ones were Freemasons. They were sent over here by Satan's earthly cronies over in Europe to create a beachhead for the New World Order. That's the reason they called it the New World, because they wanted to have a beachhead for the New World Order. And so they came over, and yeah, they had not all of them were controlled, just like not all of the politicians today are controlled, but many of them were. They came up with a great constitution that was better than anything we've ever seen before or since, but that doesn't mean they were all Christian. And so what I try to describe in my book is how God's fingerprints were all over the founding of this country, but yet Satan's were too. And because God's fingerprints were on the founding of this country, it took these Luciferians a lot longer than they thought to try to get control, because the power of the Spirit, the power of God's people, the power of the Bible, it was a restraining influence. But it's well documented that around the turn of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, that's when the likes of Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford, DuPont, all the great, wealthy elites of this country got together and decided, if we're going to usher in the one world system, we're going to have to destroy America as it has become, this Christian nation. And so, what do you see happening around the early 20th century? You see two wars, you see takeover of the finance system, establishment of the Federal Reserve, establishment of the income tax, taking over of big pharma, creation of Western medicine, takeover of the textbook industry, all of the higher education, the boards of the schools. And then here we are 120 years later, and look, we can't even define a woman. We can't, we have transgenders, we have gender surrender, we have just crime and immorality. And you mentioned the progression of TV, or the digression, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was by design. This didn't just happen organically. They took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and they said, we're going to destroy this country. And by the way, I have a chapter in volume 2 on the Luciferian timetable. And it's very fascinating to me that as early as the 1930s and 40s, with Alice Bailey and Helena Blavatsky, two Satanists, Alice Bailey anyway, was channeling a demon called Master DK. And, she 15 times in 10,000 pages of writings that she claims came from a demon, she talks about the year 2025. This was in 1940. So, and we have I give several other evidences in the book that the Luciferians have been, Satan's earthly puppets, have been targeting this decade that you and I live in right now, try to usher in the one world system. And I always point out, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, because God's the one that's in charge, but it's helpful to know the enemy's blueprint. I mean, if the Cowboys had known what Green Bay's game plan was, they might have actually not gotten their butts kicked in the playoffs the other day. So knowing the enemy's blueprint can be very helpful. And I think we're living in a pretty important time when the enemy is doing everything he can to bring about the one world system.
I think so too. Yeah, it's coming down the pocket. They seem like they were trying to push for 2030, Agenda 2030, and I think they cut 5 years off of it, I believe, and they're trying to push it sooner, a lot sooner. We're seeing that. We got the first person that got the brain implant from Elon Musk. They got that going now. So transhumanism seems like it's on the board. We got AI in full swing, which is very demonic. I believe that there's demons, legion maybe in the AI. I think that's happening, and people wanting to jump into the metaverse instead of living the regular life. So you can either live forever on earth, or you could be in heaven with God. What do you want to do? A lot of people want to live forever on earth, and they don't trust in the word anymore. And there's so much, like I said, there's so much on our plates that they try to stack up. it's hard for people to pick up the word of God and believe it. They're indoctrinated. When they took over those textbooks, like you talked about, the Rockefellers, they made sure that they tried to make evolution a fact, the Big Bang a fact, and for me, I know that you don't believe in this yet, but heliocentricity a fact. So everybody's stuck in that. So once you pick up the Bible and you find out that it's 6,600 years as opposed to 13.8 billion years, and you find out that God's the one that created us, and everything comes after its kind. And then you all of a sudden you look at the textbook, it's teaching you all this stuff ever since grade school as being fact, when all it is just theories. It gets really interesting, and that's just one element of this agenda. When you're talking about, what's happening now with the genders and all that, I want to pray for them, though. I couldn't imagine having that type of dysphoria, or my mind being that confused. Thank God that I don't have something like that, but it's just Satan is working however he can. He wants to try to make it so you can't have kids. That the way to do that is to make it so you date another guy or another girl, or there's just a whole bunch of stuff to it.
Spot on. Yeah. I mean, man, you said a lot there that I love to comment on. So first of all, Satan hates humanity because humanity is God's highest pinnacle of creation. We're made in the image of God. We're little image bearers of God. So when he sees us, he hates us. He hates us for a lot of reasons. Number one, because he can't create life out of nothing. He can't speak the world into existence ex nihilo. So he's trying to marginalize mankind, kill mankind. And then, of course, with the whole transhumanist agenda, he's trying to create something better. The whole concept of build back better and transcending humanity and so forth. So absolutely, this is all part of his plan, because you can't have children if you don't have heterosexual relationships. But going back to the heliocentric model, I mean, believe me, it's not lost on me that the time when the deception really ratcheted up in this country anyway coincides with compulsory government schooling, which became mandatory in every state in 1918. The fact that they put globes in every state, in every classroom. It's not lost on me that the evolutionary theory basically tries to marginalize mankind and the earth as being at the center of the universe, which we had thought for years. And instead, we're just one tiny speck among billions of galaxies. It marginalizes us, right? So all of that is one of the reasons why I've always been intrigued by that whole whole viewpoint, but I just can't get there with some of the evidence that I've seen. But I totally respect those who are studying it and researching, and encourage everybody to research it, because you know what, I could be wrong, and like I said, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. But it's deception is running rampant. And by the way, talking about transhumanism, in the newest book that just came out last September, which is Spirit of the False Prophet: Rise of the Global Technocracy, I have a whole chapter on AI in great detail. It's the biggest chapter in the book. I have one on Chat GPT. I have one on hacking and tracking, brain-computer interfaces, all of the stuff that we were just talking about with Elon Musk. They really think that they can cheat death. Satan's first lie that he ever told, according to the biblical narrative, is you can sin and get away with it. He said to Eve, "You shall not surely die. You can eat this apple, proverbial apple, and you won't die." And that's the same lie that these Luciferian elites are telling today, is that, you can sin and get away with it, and you can, live forever. You don't have to face death. And they're having to do it since they're not God, and Satan's not God. He's not omniscient, omnipotent, or omnipresent. They're having to use technology to try to achieve these ends. That's what the whole new book is all about: the rise of the global technocracy. A technocracy is using technology to control, and that's what they're trying to do. But I hope if folks are listening that because I know you draw from a lot of a wide audience of people that are just kind of going down this rabbit hole. Listen, if you don't know the Lord, that's priority number one, because man, it's heating up quick. And the Bible is very clear that Christ died for our sins and rose from the dead. He's the only hope. You can't be smart enough, work hard enough, do enough, perform well enough to overcome the penalty of sin. It's got to be a free gift. Jesus paid a debt he didn't owe because we owed a debt we could never pay, and he took your place on the cross, and he defeated death, hell, and the grave when he rose from the dead, and now he offers freely to all this gift of eternal life, but you have to receive it. It's not automatic. In the same way that God didn't force Adam and Eve to sin, he doesn't force us to receive the remedy for sin. It's a free choice. Whosoever will, let him come drink of the water of life freely. And you do that by simply trusting in him. So I just want to throw that out there because a lot of this stuff's pretty heavy stuff, man. And
Everything we're going over. Yeah. Colossians, first Colossians 15, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature, for by him were all things created that are in heaven, that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones, dominions, principalities, or powers, all things were created by him and for him. He is before all things, and by him all things consist, and he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, and all things that might have preeminence. So we got to understand that that's talking about Jesus, right? That's talking about, Yeshua the Mashiach. So it says that who is the image of the invisible God. So Jesus is the image of the invisible God. You guys got to understand that. So, because God is spirit, right? So that's interesting. So we got to understand how powerful that is. Like when creation happened, it was spoken into existence. Now, I think what's happening with Satan, which is interesting, is I think he's trying to become omnipresent as he can, as much as he can, by using technology. If you get brain implants, and every single person has brain implants, they'll be able to see through a camera, a lens of everybody, know everybody's thoughts almost. That's one thing he can't do either. I don't believe that he can read your mind, but he knows your patterns. I think the demons know your patterns. They know what you are into, but they can't read your mind. Like God is going to know your every thought, every desire, every passion. He's going to know your heart, but Satan can't do that. So he's trying to get as close as he can to being like God. That's why it says that in Isaiah, where it talks about, he never says he's going to be above God, because God is the most high. He knows he can never be above God, but he wants to be like God. So slowly, like a slow release pill, he's getting closer and closer to being not like God, but, somewhat close with all this technology. He's trying to do his best, right?
absolutely. And you know what? And I know you've studied this, I'm sure, as well, Josh. It's not just technology. That's been the latest thing. And man, are they all excited about technology. But for decades, for 100 years, Satan's been trying to control the mind control projects through chemicals, through psychological operations. And they've made some incredible advancements, with things like MK Ultra and some of those broader programs, where you'd be shocked at how easily a trained person can come in, and I believe it's demonic ultimately, can come in and make and control your mind without actually cutting open your head and putting a piece of technology in there. So it really is a battle for the mind. I mean, you mentioned Colossians 1, which, by the way, the passage you read, I think it's quite interesting that it talks about visible and invisible dominions, principalities, and powers. We see that in Ephesians 6 as well. Just a reminder that it's a spiritual battle. But in Colossians chapter 2, Paul reminds us that it really is a battle for the mind. He says, beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy. Only time that word is ever used in the Bible, by the way, is right there in Colossians 2:8. Philosophy, philo, love, Sophia, wisdom, love of wisdom, meaning love of man's wisdom, so philosophy, empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of this world, and not according to Christ. And so it really is, we're supposed to be rooted and built up in him. We're supposed to guard the mind. Paul says in Romans 12 to be transformed by renewing your mind. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's all good.
So yeah, I mean, they've targeted the mind, because think about how powerful the mind is. I mean, God created mankind in his image, which means we have capacities that no other created being has. Animals in the jungle, they don't all get together and have a meeting and decide, I don't like the lion as my leader. I think we're going to stage a coup, or we're going to, no. it's just all animalistic. That's where that term comes from. When people behave like animals, they're behaving without a conscience, without a volition, without a free will. And so Satan hates that. He hates our minds and that we use our minds to worship the Creator. So he's attacking the mind. And that's why we have so much mental illness today. We have so much depression today, and just people using drugs and things to try to create an altered state, because it's all demonic in its core.
I agree 100%. And you see a lot of people that are on the streets, even like I know somebody that's on the streets, and I've tried to help him like actually get, to a certain point. Now he's finally doing good, and he listens to the show, so he's finally doing good. But there's some people that are on the streets though that are being, I believe they're being spiritually attacked. Some of them might have been in witchcraft before. Some of them might have been in certain things that where they owe the demon, because that's what happens. They think that they can't get away from it, even though if that they get saved, they're going to get away from it, But it's scary and it's sad for them, and it's just crazy, man. But yeah, and it also mentioned right there on Second Colossians 10, it says, "And ye are complete in him, which he is the head of all principality and power." So when you talk about Ephesians 6:12, when it says, principalities, thrones, dominions, and even in the Geneva Bible, it actually talks about worldly governors. I think that's interesting. I don't know if you ever went back to the Geneva, but when you go to Ephesians 6:12, the Geneva Bible is not only talking about principalities in high places, but it's also talking about worldly governors and princes. So black nobility, people we're talking about right now. So we need to be
David,
aware of that.
1,000 years before Christ, King David wrote in Psalm 2 about how the rulers of this world are
Yes, yes,
firing together. Why? Because they don't like the cords of God's control. Think of a cord as binding someone up,
yes.
and the strong man in Jesus' day at the Gadarenes and breaking the chains. They don't like to be bound up. These demons don't like to be controlled. They have control issues. And Satan is, these rulers, these world governors, these world presidents and prime ministers are conspiring together. But of course, we know from Psalm 2 that God just laughs at them, because from God's perspective, he's already installed his king, the eternal Son, on the throne, and he's going to rule with a rod of iron someday. But we've got to get there. We're not there yet from a human perspective on the time-space continuum. We've still got to wait and wait for the Lord to come back and wait for all things to be made new. But I tell you what, if a person is not prepared, um, they're just a sitting duck. And you just pointed out how Christ is the head of all this, folks. That's why you need to know Jesus. You
Yes.
need to know him. He's the only hope. And I encourage folks to trust in him.
Yes, trust in him for sure. Yeah, and this all the stuff we talked about was amazing. And what's your view before we end? What's your view on end times? Are you like there's that some people believe in the 70th week of Daniel coming. There was a church age before that, the 7-year tribulation, Antichrist, 3.5 years of peace, and then the abomination of desolation, then the great tribulation starts. What I mean, I had that exact when I first started the podcast, and I've had people on that have that exact thought, and then about eschatology, but some people have different thoughts, which I didn't even know about, all millennialism and all this different stuff. And having a podcast, you get a bunch of different views that you never heard before, and it just becomes really interesting now when you look at life. So
No, Josh, that's a great question. And the thing about the conspiracy world, especially in the last few years when more and more people are waking up, is it does bring together a lot of people from varied backgrounds. But what's unique about my approach is that I was a biblicist first. I had spent my years in ministry and teaching and higher education, and student of the word, studied it at the highest levels, got a PhD in that. And not that that makes me anything. I don't even think about it in those terms anymore, because I haven't been in academics since 2012. But I'm just saying that was my world. And then I woke up to the grand conspiracy. So for me, I've got to run everything through the lens of scripture. And I am an unapologetic and passionate believer in dispensational premillennialism. There's a lot of misinformation out there about dispensationalism. I've had some of the top scholars in the world on this subject on, like Dr. Lee Brainerd and Dr. Tommy Ice. And we've had a couple of podcasts recently called Debunking Rapture Debunking and Debunking Rapture Debunking again, because you got these tired old embarrassing arguments out there that people should be ashamed to even bring up about Margaret MacDonald and stuff that's been completely debunked for those who take the time to look at it. And so I absolutely do believe that the Bible, when you take it in its literal, grammatical, historical understanding, the way words are intended to be used on the page, you will arrive at a distinction between Israel and the church. The church is a mystery, as Paul describes in Ephesians 3. And we are God's envoys today in this present age. But God is not through with Israel. The church did not replace Israel. Romans 9-11 makes that clear.
Okay.
The church is going to be raptured before the 70th week of Daniel. Then God's spotlight shifts once again to Israel, just like it did for the first 69 weeks. That word week in Hebrew is Shabuah. It means 7-year period. If you do the math, we know that the first year of that, 490-year plan that God gives Daniel occurred in the year of Artaxerxes when he issued the decree. It ended this 483rd year ended when Christ came at the first advent, but you've got 7 years that are still unfulfilled, and they're going to be fulfilled literally just like the first ones were. So I believe the rapture is going to happen before the 70th week of Daniel. Then there's a gap of time of some unknown length when things are going crazy and you've got all kinds of prophecies being fulfilled. But at some point, the Antichrist is going to rise to the fore, orchestrate a peace treaty, and then that starts the clock ticking on the final 7 years, culminating with Christ's triumphant return at the Battle of Armageddon. But, like you, I've had people on my show that don't hold to a pre-trib view. They might be pre-wrath. I've spoken in churches that are pre-wrath. I'm pretty passionate about it, but I respect people, especially if they come at it from a biblical viewpoint.
Of course.
They're not just, dismissing pre-tribulationism without studying it. They've just come to a different conclusion. I respect that, but definitely, our position is pre-tribulation.
Okay. Another question for you. When they say Israel in the Bible, can you replace that with like Hebrew Israelites? Do you think that is it really the state of Israel? Is it the people? Is it the 12 tribes of Israel? What are they referring to when you say Israel? Because some people believe that it's the actual state of Israel and the people that are there right now. Some people believe that the 12 tribes are all over scattered across the world and they're not together yet in a state, What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, they're not right now. I mean, some of them have come back.
Okay.
But first of all, the definition of Israel. Israel is both an ethnicity, tracing its lineage back to Abraham, but it's also a geography because God gave Abraham in Genesis 15 the boundaries of the promised land that are geographic in nature. So context always has to determine meaning, obviously, and in some contexts it's referring to the geography of Israel. In some cases, it's referring to the lineage of Israel. In the Bible, you've got 4 seeds of Israel. 4 seeds of Abraham, I should say. You've got the ethnic seed, which means they are ethnic Jews who trace their lineage back to Abraham. Then you've got the spiritual ethnic Jews that Paul talks about in Romans 9, himself being one of them, and that is ethnic Jews who've also believed the gospel and become Christians, right? So they're spiritually born again. Then you've got the spiritual seed of Abraham. That's Gentiles who've gotten saved, and they're therefore going to receive the blessings that were promised globally to Abraham. But then Galatians tells us there's one ultimate seed of Abraham, and that's Jesus Christ. So he's the ultimate fulfillment of everything in the kingdom. But the promise to Abraham was that through Israel, through his seed, the whole world would be blessed. So in modern day, you've got modern day Israel, you've got Orthodox Jews, you've got secular Jews. A lot of the leadership in Israel today is most of them are unbelievers. They're not Christians. Yeah. But even beyond that, some of them aren't even good Jews. They're just secular Israelites, if you will. So you gotta kind of keep it all straight. And I think there's a lot of emotion involved ever since the Hamas attacks on October 7th. People are talking past each other. But remember, you've got political Zionism, but you've also got biblical Zionism.
Which is the most important for us,
Which is the
biblical
most
Zionism.
important. no
Yeah.
doubt. And I've taken some heat because I've pointed out that because Israel is in the land in unbelief today, this isn't, they won't be in the land in belief until Christ comes back, Matthew 24:31, and regathers them after the tribulation. But they're not perfect, right? I mean, they're, I've taken some heat for that, and especially talking about how there could be rogue elements of Israel's leadership in the same way that there's rogue elements of the United States leadership, right? I find it
There's 100%. I don't even want,
no
there's
doubt. Yeah.
100%. And if people don't believe that, then you just,
But for some
oh, wow.
people, they just are so blinded in their Israelology
I know. I
that
know.
they can't go in. But what's funny about it is those same people have no trouble criticizing Biden or Obama or Hillary. And so, in other words, at least intellectually, they know that there are certain elements in our government that are bad. Now,
Yeah. There's,
naive in the sense that they think it's only the Democrats, but as you and I have talked about, it goes both ways. But conceptually, they can conceptualize the notion that an otherwise good country could have bad leaders. And even in the Bible, we see Israel has a rich history of bad leaders, Ahab, Jezebel, so on and so forth. So yet sometimes when you bring that up today in the context of this war, people just go apoplectic and they're like, what? You mean you criticized it like you're a Hamas terrorist because you criticized
oh,
Netanyahu like that? And it's
yeah.
like, to me, it's really frustrating. But so that's, yeah,
And
that's
they're using Bible verses to say why they're doing things. And I think
yeah,
that is terrible for
yeah.
for him to do, to say that these guys are the Amorites and that's why we're killing them. Like, what are you talking? You're not even a Bible believer. You know what I mean? I don't think he is. Who knows if he is? I'm not trying to judge the guy, but yeah. And you're right. People get very crazy about it. And I think and it's on purpose. The agenda is there. It's to
Yeah, and
suck all the Christian conservatives to back up them, and then they suck all the the Democrats to back up that. It's divide and conquer all over again, and
is
the main thing that we need to realize is there's people actually dying. I was in the military before. I didn't, luckily God didn't have me kill anybody. I was just fueling helicopters and they were going and doing the killing, and that's terrible, man. So I just think that people need to understand that people are dying behind all these arguments. That's the main thing we need to understand.
they are, but I want to be clear too in what I said earlier. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Hamas isn't terrible. They're horrible, and the stuff that they did is, I mean, these are terrorists. This isn't another country. War is hell. War is bad. Innocent people die in war all the time. I get it, but what Hamas did is horrible, and Israel has a right to defend herself against Hamas. But what I'm saying is that there are rogue elements in every government that could have ulterior motives, and when Israel kills innocent people by accident, see the difference between Hamas and Israel is Hamas believes in collateral murder. They're seeking out innocent people to kill. That's what terrorists do. Israel, by and large, and there are exceptions because there could be rogue elements, but by and large, they have a rich history in modern Israel of doing everything they can, dropping leaflets and whatever, to avoid civilian casualties. Do they make mistakes? Absolutely. Look what America's done. We've killed all kinds of innocent people through the years. So I'm not, when I am trying to be constructive in my description of Israel, I'm not suggesting that um, Israel is unjustified. All I'm saying is there's a bigger agenda here in my mind, and it's a little more complex than people think. But absolutely, Hamas needs to be wiped off the face of the earth. I mean, they're. I mean, you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, my whole thing is like this. My whole thing is like this. We have rules of engagement when you're in the military. So whenever you go over and you're about to get dropped off in Iraq, they're going to tell you before you know this, that if you commit this, if you see somebody with an AR-15 or AK-47, you don't just shoot them, because they could be carrying that AR-15 at all times to protect their neighborhood. You know what I mean? So we just need to realize that there's rules of engagement, and if a country is not following those rules of engagement, then that's not good. And I've seen a lot of stuff, and who knows what's going on, because what I want to tell people is, dude, there's so much lies and deceptions that people are going to teach you on the news, whether you're watching Fox or you're watching. It's like, we both know, and I know you're so awake to this stuff,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I my whole thing is just that we need to pray for we need to pray for both sides at all times. and we need to pray for the Russians, and we need to pray for Ukraine. We need to pray for everybody, because if it's an enemy to the United States, it doesn't mean it's an enemy to God. You know what I mean? We think like that because we think United States is like always fight, but we need to pray for all of it because it's just terrible that the wars are being fought for resources, for land, for money, for oil, for everything that's happening right now. It's not
Right. Right. And so when I say we need to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth, I'm not saying Arabs.
No way. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about how
these guys, but you're right. The problem is, there are rules of engagement, and I think sometimes in our fury, we're not showing restraint and making sure that we've got the right guy. That's what we did with Iraq. We went over and killed 1 million Iraqi civilians, and Iraq, even in the official narrative, had nothing to do with 9/11, even in the official narrative. Yeah. So when people die, and when innocent people die in horrific atrocities like what we saw, on 9/11 or in the Hamas attacks, the knee-jerk reaction is let's go kill a bunch of people. And I just think, I hope we do hunt down every Hamas terrorist who is an actual Hamas terrorist, and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and all of these others. But unfortunately, I personally think there's a bigger agenda at play here.
Oh, we know that there is. I think so too. But we'd agree. But man, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm not going to take too much of your time because now it's probably getting closer to like 12 something, right? I think.
Yeah,
you are a trooper. You are such a trooper.
Yeah, we're headed down to Lake Charles, Louisiana. We've got a conference this weekend, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so I'm in Dallas at a hotel tonight. And but man, this is great. I love talking about this stuff, as you can tell. So yeah, anytime I'd love to come back on, do some more discussion.
We went from like subject to subject to subject to subject, I think perfectly so. God is so great. I really appreciate you coming on, and you have a PhD, so you've been researching the Bible so much, and that's why I like to find out, if you've been studying the Bible for this long, and I like to find out what your eschatology is, just to see, because I see that, I see there's a lot in the conspiracy world right now, especially there's a lot of people that are being led in different ways, and I like to find out what your thought on eschatology was, and it's, it's spot on. I love it. It's interesting, and I appreciate everything you do. I'm going to definitely have you back on where we could, maybe we'll lock a subject where we just kind of just attack that subject, whatever you feel like you want to do, whatever God puts on your heart, we could do. And I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Also, I'd like to send you the 3 books so that you can kind of look through some of the subjects that resonate with you. Maybe we can talk about that. And for your listeners, if you're interested, again, our website is notbyworks.org. We have a very robust online store with all kinds of books, DVDs, streaming video. But if you want just to go straight to the books, it's spiritoftheantichrist.org and spiritofthefalseprophet.org. Both of those landing pages, Spirit of the Antichrist and spiritofthefalseprophet.org, will get you there, and you can kind of see if it's something that you might want to go down the rabbit hole as well.
Can you shout out your Rumble as well, so they could find you on there too?
Yeah. So Rumble, if you just any social media platform, the easiest thing is just search for Not by Works Ministries or NBW Ministries. But our Rumble channel is just Not by Works. So rumble.com/notbyworks, or just search for Not by Works Ministries. It'll come right up. It's all on our website as well.
And when I post the show, I'm going to tag you. It's NBW Ministries on Instagram as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I appreciate everything you do for us. We always end this in prayer, so we'll go ahead and end this in prayer. So Father God, in the name of Jesus, we appreciate everything you do for us. We went over a vast amount of subjects here. We just want to ask that you protect JB as he's going to these different conferences. Have a legion of angels surrounding him. I know that he's digging and diving into subjects that people are very uncomfortable with. If you can help him to teach these subjects, help him to teach the Bible to his greatest ability, anybody that he's in front of, have them have open ears. We want to shake and wake the public, to getting closer to you, Lord, to finding out, we just want to, if you could supernaturally help JB to just do what he needs to do as far as his ministry and his mission. And Lord, we like to always say thank you so much for even giving us the Bible to read, and for us being able to be literate enough to understand it. Thank you for the Strong's Concordance, where we can go back to the Hebrew and the Greek and find out what you were trying to say to us. We know that all scripture is inspired by God. We know that you inspired all the scriptures, and we just want to say thank you for us having the opportunity to even be able to read your Bible and to be able to teach from your Bible. What a blessing it is. Father God, we love you. We appreciate everything you do. Please bless his ministry, Lord, and help him do what he needs to do. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, JV. I'm going to be in contact with you. We will definitely have a show. And what I'll do as soon as this show uploads, I'm going to Google Drive and send it to your email right away. I'll try to do audio and video, if that's all right with you. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post both of them. Send me your address so I can drop those books in the mail. I have my daughter. She works for us back at the office. She'll send them to you.
And I'll buy one of them to make sure I buy one, and you can send the other ones if you like. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Everybody that's listening, please do me a favor, and anything you find on audio, if you have audio as well, right? Give him a 5-star review on his audio, Spotify and all that stuff. And also follow him on Rumble. And if you guys could give us a 5-star review to help our show and our algorithm, and subscribe to our YouTube. We appreciate everything you guys do, and God bless you.